name is Tom, provider of T.H.CooneyArt, and in this video I'm going to be showing you one of my best pieces of replicated prop work, the Sao Feng allegorical map from Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
The navigation of chance. The route to the farthest gate.
The first attempt at making this map was about 6 years ago, and that was a complete and utter failure. The images looked nothing like what they did in the movie, and the whole thing was made from parchment paper, and it was attached together with gag tape. A complete disaster, so unfortunately I don't have that one with me because I threw it away. That was before I learned that that was a stupid thing to do. If you're an artist, keep everything. Do not throw anything away, even if it's rubbish. The next attempt at making that map was this one. It's another rolling up version. This time I spent a lot more effort and time in making sure the images looked as they were in the movie, but still my prop replication skills weren't quite up to scratch. This was drawn on parchment paper with a layer of mount card to give it some extra support. Then I sliced a Venetian blind to pieces for the slats on the back. While this map turned out sufficiently well, there were numerous parts of it that I failed on miserably. Chief among them was not keeping track of the illustrations as I went around the rings. I was working blindly, I should have planned them out, and I ran out of space before I finished the illustrations. So these bits over here are kind of squeezed in. James Burkett, the amazing designer of this map, accidentally poked himself while making it. So he thought, why not drip some real blood on the map? I didn't use real blood because I heard how, after a while, real blood turns green. Anyway, let's get rid of this one. But about a year later, I decided I would really make the Sao Feng Map from Pirates of the Caribbean. So, with a combination of a lot of time and effort and research and burning out the engine in my dad's jigsaw in the process, I made this. Now, this was completed around about March 2011, and I am still staggered with how well it turned out. I did not expect it to turn out this well. I put my heart and soul into making sure all the images looked as they were in the movie, and that I didn't run out of any space around the outside of the rings. I scrutinised the DVD and the internet for images and research, and eventually I put all this together. I love making mistakes like that. You learn so much. Now, all the rings were carefully measured out, cut, and then I spent almost a week filing them all down so that they would fit inside each other. Unfortunately, this left some dirty grey gaps. I tried several types of lubrication to get the rings moving smoothly. Engine oil, olive oil, WD-40, but the best was Vaseline. Not only did it allow the rings to move smoothly, but it lasted a long time, and it sort of glued others in place, allowing singular ones to move on their own, without dragging other rings around with it. That was completely by accident. I did not expect that to happen. Fake blood again, and this time I was more careful with the charcoal smudgings. I didn't want to leave any telltale smear marks, and I wasn't prepared to use real fire. I'll explain why. The islands in the centre here were coloured with watercolour crayons, but I learned from an Italian car designer friend of mine that lighter fluid works well as a colour blender. Unlike water, it doesn't strip the colour straight off, and the effect doesn't last as long. So that's what I recommend for perfect colour blending. Lighter fluid with cotton buds, and of course for larger areas, kitchen towel and lighter fluid. Now, I imagine you're wondering how this map works and how it moves. Well, let's find out, shall we? The entire map consists of 2 layers of MDF wood, each about 1 centimetre thick. They had to be that thick so that the rings wouldn't pop off and rotate on top of each other, like paper or card. The actual prop has a central axle for the disc to spin around on. I tried a central axle at one point, but unfortunately these rings weren't cut precise enough, so they just kept on jamming and scraping. It was a nightmare, so in the end I just went without it. These rings weren't cut precisely enough for a central axle because I didn't have access to specialist equipment, but that was before I learned about the laser cutter at Coventry University, where I study. James Burkett had the actual prop made from brass, so the actual prop doesn't need any lubrication at all. It was made from brass because of the humidity that they had to work with on the set for Pirates of the Caribbean. Eventually the rings would expand in the hot weather and stop moving altogether. Fortunately I live in England where warm weather is few and far between, so I didn't have that problem.
You know, with the humidity that we have down here, it's just a lot of the challenge we had was to you know, find something that wasn't going to be affected by the elements. So we have these brass rings that all lift up like that.
You'd get to a point where the rings probably wouldn't turn anymore. It was ridiculous. Don't ever do that at home.
Too late! Also, the actual prop is constructed slightly different from mine. This ring and this ring are actually one ring with the actual prop, and this ring sits within this one. That's how they get their singular ring to move on its own. I didn't want that. I wanted my map to be as free as possible, so I made these separate rings. So that's basically it really. Each ring spinning freely inside each other on a baseboard. The baseboard was attached together with PVA glue and screws for extra support, but that was before I realised just how well PVA sticks wood together, so I probably didn't need the screws. Covered in Vaseline now, that's what happens when I pull this map apart. Thanks!
Not so bad.
Now the part that required the most care was probably the central disc here. There's about 4 or 5 different shades of orange, yellow and brown in there, just to create the ocean blend and the sunbeams, and of course the skulls. The moon phases around the outside here consist of black ink with Tipex to create the stars. But that was before I learned to use white ink.
Well, now we have a firm grasp of the obvious.
To create the hidden messages, I simply lined up an area on 2 rings where the message would appear, and wrote across it. Here is over the edge, over again. You'll have to excuse the absence of the entirety of the word due to the dirty great gap there, that couldn't be helped. Down here, there you have it. Sunrise sets, flash of green. Oh, and while we're here, here's something rather interesting, is the dragon that forms from the series of islands down here. There he is. See the dragon? Here is up is down. How maddeningly unhelpful. Now there are also, I'm pretty sure, there are also hidden messages. There are additional hidden messages on this map that we never see in the movie, because I saw 2 of the messages lined up in the movie and there was still hidden text across the edges here, and I could never find out what those were, so I decided to make up some of my own messages. Let's see if I can find one. That's the amazing thing about this map. I drew it and I can't even find my own messages. No, that's over the edge over again. No, that's over the edge. Where's the flipping thing? Ah, here it is, here it is. Total eclipse shines, open the shadowed void. And the final one is down here. Look never at the ghost's bleeding eye. There's about 7 or 8 different blends of blue and green here to create this colour, along with these various illustrations. Down here is something rather interesting. In this area here there is a little Mickey Mouse symbol to state Disney's ownership of the prop. I decided to use this concept to put my signature and the completion date there, 26th of March 2011. As far as I'm aware, we only see Aqua de Vida on the small version of the map at the very end of the movie, but I decided to put it on the full-size version because I liked it. Here is your symbol ring. Your guess is as good as mine. Same goes for this ring, but I imagine this ring has something to do with hell, and curiously there are 9 illustrated rings. 2 rather familiar faces there. The Chinese calligraphy over here is replicated to the best of my ability from what I could find, that being few and far between very brief shots of the calligraphy. I don't blame any of you guys out there who know a bit of Chinese for criticising me for writing this wrong, because I don't even know what it says in English anyway. And the story is the same over here. I'm not sure if I got these sections right, but I did my best. The strap was made from an old PVC jacket I used to own, and a pair of shoelaces from one of my dad's old pairs of shoes. I had to nail this to the edge of the board because there was no adhesive that would hold it. Now, it wasn't until about a year after I completed this one that I was able to have another stab at making a rolling up version of the map. Thankfully, my parents bought a scanner whose lid could be removed, so I was able to turn the scanner upside down and scan individual sections of the map. I obviously couldn't turn this one upside down because the rings would fall out, and the rings needed to be in specific positions for the still image that would be on the rolling up version. I wouldn't be able to make sure of that if the map was upside down. But that problem was overcome. I spliced all the scans together in Photoshop and had the whole thing printed at Coventry University. Unlike the previous rolling up version, I had this one printed on canvas so that it could roll up without creasing and folding and without any resistance at all, and another Venetian blind suffered a horrific fate. I could only find one image on the internet of the calligraphy on the back, and as far as I can tell it doesn't exist anymore, so I was fortunate to get that image while it still existed. It took quite a bit of measuring and time and effort to get all these letterings in the right place. And that's not it. Well, I had to complete the collection, didn't I? So, I had a smaller section of the middle of the map printed so that I could make the cut-out section that Jack Sparrow steals from Barbossa. I had lots of fun wrecking the edges of this map and sandpapering it to make it look like it had been viciously cut out of the huge map. Obviously this prop doesn't have this lovely lace here, that was just for added beauty. So there you have it, my finest piece of replicated prop work. Huge congratulations to James Burkett, the genius who designed this map, and please subscribe if you like my artwork and want to see more. See ya! I imagine you're wondering how this map works. Well, let's find out, shall we? I may need a screwdriver. Even today I am still staggered with how amazingly well it turned out. Go on, shoo! I'll get it this time, I promise. What have I done with my screwdriver? Oh, here it is. Anyway, let's get rid of this one. Yeah, as per usual, internet is down, so yeah, my compass actually isn't pointing north.